You want to start canning. You want to go all in and do all the things because canning your food is so cool. What better way to take advantage of the garden that you have planted or the produce that you're catching on sale or making sure that your family has what they need in case of an emergency moving forward. Do you want to make quick and easy meals out of real food? None of that uber processed food? Do you want to bring your health into check? Canning is the way to do it. But, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff out there. What do you need in order to get started? Today we're going to go through canning equipment and accessories because there is so much and you don't need a whole bunch. Hello everybody and welcome to SuttonsDaze. If you're new here, my name is Lisa. We are all about pantry preparedness and today we're talking about canning equipment because there is a bunch of stuff out there. Now, one of the first things that people are going to say is, I have an electric pressure canner. Okay, then you don't need this video, okay? And you're good on your own. Electric pressure canners at this time are not approved by any of the EDUs, by any of the agencies at all, because there has not been enough testing on them to ensure that they do what they're supposed to do no matter where you are in the country with your elevation, okay? I'm not going to debate it, discuss it, anything else. We're good. But I'm going to show you the stuff that will work properly, regardless of whether or not you have power, and will can your food safely. This is the equipment that you must have, and then we'll get to the, well, this is kind of cool to have, you know? So we'll do that. Let's get started. First, you need a pressure canner. Now, I've got the 4 jars canner here. You can see that. I am beating this thing up. It's all I use anymore, to the extent that I have given away my 2 Prestos to people who wanted to learn to can. I thought it was a really great opportunity to get them going. So right now, this is what I'm using, but it's not available right now, okay? So when it comes back in stock, I'll be sure to let you know. I am digging this canner hard. That being said, I love my Prestos. Prestos are workhorses. They are serious workhorses. I have beat my Prestos up forever and I bought them used. I still have 2 vintage yellow, 1 vintage green. You know, yeah, I'm keeping them, okay? Because Prestos are workhorses. They're quality and they're made to last. The one thing that you have to consider is that you do have gaskets that need to be changed. That's really not a big deal. It's super easy to get them, and you don't have to change them that often unless you are seriously misusing your canners. I have changed the gaskets on all of my canners 1 time in all the years that I've had them, okay? And it's like, when one goes out, pretty much the rest of them go out, and that's just the way life works. But it's not something that you have to have, you know, a whole bunch of. Now, do I have an extra one in my preps? Yes, I do. Because eventually it will go bad. And it's going to be at the most inconvenient time possible. It's not something that you have to change annually. It's not even something you have to change every other year. I mean, who knows? It really depends. But it's not something that needs frequent changing. So I do highly recommend Presto pressure canners, both the 16 quart and the 23 quart or 24 quart, depending on what number you're looking at. 23 and 24 quart is essentially the same canner. The 16 quart canner is shorter, okay? You can see this picture here. It's shorter. It holds 7 quarts and either 9 or 10 pints. Kind of depends on your jars. The 23 quart Presto holds 7 quarts. That's all you can get into it, either one, okay? But you can double stack the pint jars. So you can get 18 or 19 jars into a 23 quart. So if you do a lot of pints, that's beneficial for large batches, right? It's a great thing. If you don't do large batches and you just do some quarts and you just do some pints, then, you know, a 16 quart will work just fine. Now, the All-American is, I often refer, the Cadillac of pressure canners, okay? So if status is a really big thing for you, that's great. That's the canner for you. I have nothing against All-Americans. I own 4 of them. I have a problem. I'll be the first to admit it. However, You don't need to change a gasket. There is no gasket. It does work slightly different than the Presto. So if you're used to a Presto, there is a learning curve, learning to get the lid on there correctly, to, you know, tighten down all of the knobs. And it does have a jiggler. It just automatically comes with a jiggler. The gauge is so that you know when it hits bottom, okay? But the jiggler is there to let you know what's going on. Let me backtrack for a second. With the Presto pressure canner, most of them come with a weighted, or not just a regulator, just a regular regulator, okay? But you can purchase, or some of them now come with a weighted regulator. And the regulators, I'll link a video down below on the regulators so that you can tell the difference, which one you have, which one you might need to buy an extra part for. So check out that video because it'll be very helpful. The 4 jars canner comes with a weighted regulator, period. So it takes a lot of that pressure off, and the weighted regulator is a game changer. Back to the All-American. The All-American will be something that your grandchildren will to their children, okay? That is how long they last if you don't do goofy stuff. You can put an All-American over a chef camp stove, no problems, because it's a higher gauge metal than the Presto or even the 4 jars. So if that's something that you're interested in, then the All-American is good for that. It is a serious, huge, big investment, okay? If you're just getting into canning and you're not sure it's your jam yet, you might want to start with a Presto. If you want to go full bore and let's get the Cadillac, All-American is for you. They are all 3 amazing and wonderful brands of canners, and I highly recommend all of them. It's going to depend on your outlook, on your circumstances, on your financial circumstances, okay? But any of those will work perfectly for canning. Now let's talk about water bath canning. Water bath canning. They have those enamel kettles, those great big enamel kettles that you can get for water bath canning. It normally comes with a rack in the bottom and, you know, I don't know, some other stuff. I literally have them stacked up in my garage because nobody uses them anymore. I'm going to turn them into a tipsy pot thing to plant flowers in this summer because I don't use them either. I have no use for those great big pots with all of that water. You can literally use a stock pot. Pick a stock pot, my friends, okay? The stock pot is a beautiful thing if you're doing small batches of jam and you're not sure you want to get full into all of the excessive equipment. What you do have to have is a rack for the bottom of it. I have hunted high, maybe not low, to find this. It does not matter what canner you use, you are going to need racks. I highly recommend getting extra racks, okay? I picked up most of these at garage sales. This is the newest one. Wow, has the quality changed? Let me tell you. However, at a garage sale, I found these little bitties. Look at how much smaller they are, okay? I can't find them. I can't find that they're selling them anymore. So I specifically got these from that garage sale and keep them because they fit in my stock pots for doing like small batches of jam, you know, that kind of thing. They're wonderful. If you can't find these, and I will keep looking, but if you can't find these and you want to use just your stock pot, nobody needs another pot in their kitchen, right? So if you can't find, that for your stock pot, then simply a towel in the bottom of your pot. Or you can zip tie together rings, canning rings, and put them on the bottom. And there's also baskets, if it fits into your pot, that you can lower your jars into for water bath canning. That is an option. You don't want your jars, regardless of what kind of canning you're doing, to sit on the bottom. It's not good. That's where the heat is hitting, and it's not good for the jars. So you want to have something, even if it's a towel, even if it's a washcloth, something on the bottom. So any pot in your kitchen will do, as long as it has a lid. I'm not going to get into the debate of open kettle. Open kettle has been proven not to be safe, so we don't do open kettle canning. I don't care what anybody else does. You need a lid for that pot. Water boils faster and harder with a lid. The one thing that you do need to know about the pot is that you have to be able to have enough water in that pot once you put the jars in, to be an inch above the jars. So it has to be a kind of a deep pot, okay? That is something that you're not going to get away from. You need an inch of water on top of your jars, on top of whatever they're sitting on in the pot, plus the lid. That's how you make it work for water bath canning. Can you water bath can with your pressure canner? Absolutely you can. And quite honestly, that's another way to save a buck, okay? Because you don't have to make up or go looking for a small little rack to fit in the bottom of your pot. All you do is you fill your canner with water much higher than you would if you were pressure canning, because you want the water to be over the top of the jars no less than an inch. When you take the lid, you're just going to set it on there. You're not going to screw it into place. You're just going to set it on there, and that will count, okay? So you can water bath can in your pressure canner, absolutely. Just don't tighten down that lid. Make sure that the water is at least an inch above your jars. Now, if you're just over all of that water, then you can do a steam canner. This is the steam canner I use. I'm going to link 2 separate steam canners down below. This is apparently, there's been a big discussion. This might be an aluminum steam canner, and Renee actually got a pinhole on the bottom. I have 2 of these. I beat them up pretty regularly. Anything that you can water bath, you can steam can, as long as it is not processed for more than 40 minutes, because this bad boy only holds 2 quarts of water. 2 quarts as opposed to maybe a couple gallons. That's a big difference, right? So much easier to steam can than to water bath can. I'll put a link down below so that you can check out Steam Canning 101 video that I have, and it will walk you through the fun of the steam canner. I steam can now predominantly. I do not water bath can. I can't think of anything that I can and consume that requires more than 40 minutes of processing. So the steam canner is it. You can fit quarts, and you can fit pints, and you can fit half pints, obviously. So any jar will work. With a water bath canner, you can do any of those sizes also, as long as the water goes an inch above the jar. So those are the main pieces of equipment that you're going to want to look at. And honestly, at the end of the day, you just need a pressure canner. Now I'm going to put a link down below for racks. I don't believe in ever being without. I always have extra, because sometimes I find used pressure canners that I cannot walk away from them. I must rescue them, and sometimes they don't have these. So I always keep a lot around. And you can see, I mean, there's so many different styles, right? And I love them all. So extra racks, links down below. Now we're going to get to the accessories. Okay, Lisa, I have invested in the pressure canner. How much more money do I have to spend? Not that much. Not that much at all. Okay? After this, it's a matter of preference. You are going to need a jar lifter. So, a jar lifter. You can get these very cheap. Typically come in a set. I will put a couple options down below. The jar lifter, this part's on the bottom, this part's on top. Okay? So, I have seen all kinds of wonky stuff on the internet, and that is how you pull your jars out of the canner, so that you don't burn your fingers off, because burning your fingers off takes all the joy out of canning. Unless you are using these improperly or for juggling purposes, they're going to last a really long time. Look at this one, you guys. Look at that one, okay? Number one, I bought it used, and then I used it forever. A lot of my old videos, you'll see this one, right? This one, I got used. Yes, it's my backup to my backup. This is my newer one. So, you know, it can become a little compulsive if you allow it. I'm not going to lie. Jar lifters, must have. Add that to your must-have list, okay? Now, there are these things. Okay, I call this a Pokem Stabber. I'll have a link down below. But it is also a magnet. Back in the day, you had to heat up your lids in warm water before you put them on your jars, okay? And so you would use the magnet to grab the lids out of the hot water to put them on your jars. Is this magnet necessary today? not so much. Most of the lids today, you don't need to heat up. So I don't necessarily need the magnet part. That's not the part that I'm talking about. The poke 'em stabber is the part that I'm talking about. This is it's nice to have tool, because you get in there and that's what you debubble with, okay? Because it's really not a great idea to debubble with a metal knife. You may be really miffed at your spouse, and you're in there beating your jar up with a knife. You know, no, don't do that, okay? So it's just better to have plastic. It is. Or a chopstick, literally. If you can go and get dinner and get a free debubbling tool, do it. I have a plethora of magnets. I'll use them for something. Way back in the day, for those people that have been with me since the beginning, do you remember before we remodeled the kitchen, this used to sit up on top of the hood of my stove? Yeah, it never left. That way I always knew where it was. This is a nice to have. If you don't have a ladle in your kitchen, then it's a must-have. You can use any ladle at all. However, this ladle, okay, where it has the spouts on either side, that holds a phenomenal amount of liquid that I use for everything beyond canning. I'll use this for serving dinner. Yes, I will. I will use this for ladling up soup when we have soup or chili for dinner. This is the most awesome ladle in the world because it has a hook that hooks onto the edge of your pot. Have you ever had to go diving for a ladle? It's not fun. This ladle is gold. This ladle is so gold that when my original one finally died and the handle came off, it took years. I mean, it took years and years, okay, of me using it for everything. I kept this part. I did. I kept the red part because I could use it as a short thing to get in there and do it. So, and it still sits on the side of the pot. It's going to be hard. You're going to be hard pressed to get this out of my hands. Yes. What makes life a lot easier when you're filling your jars is a canning funnel. Especially if you're doing soups and stews and jams and jellies, right? Because we're not always steady. We're not always sure. We're not always, you know, right on our game. So having a canning funnel is very important. These are the ones that I have. These are the ones that I love so much. 4 Jars has these. They will be back in stock soon. Remember, anything I talk about with 4 Jars, if you use the code SuttonsDaze, you get 10% off your purchase, which is phenomenal. But they have a wide mouth funnel, and they have a regular mouth funnel, and then they have a strainer, which is awesome. Okay, that is probably one of the best inventions ever. But in addition to that, their strainers, or their funnels, have the headspace marked on here. So when you put it on the jar, okay, you can see the headspace. Yeah. So if headspace curmuggles your brain, this is a beautiful thing. And it's for pints, it's for half pints, it's for quarts, it's for half-gallon jars, okay? This will show you the proper headspace, along with getting most of the food into the jar, which sometimes can be challenging on certain days. The other must-have, lids. You must have lids, okay? I, of course, recommend 4 Jars canning lids. I have used a ton of lids over time. These are the best lids on the market with the best price point ever. They have regular sales and promotions, and if you don't feel like waiting for a sale or a promotion, you can use the code SuttonsDaze, link is down below, and you can save 10%. So they're always available, and even when there is a sale or a promotion, you can still use that code and get even more off. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that, right? So, lids. Depending on what kind of jars that you get. What kind of jars should I get? That's going to depend on how big your family is, how much you're planning on canning. Should I get wide mouth? Should I get regular mouth? Again, it's a total preference. I buy 90% of my jars used because I'm cheap. That's just the way I roll, okay? And to me, as long as it goes into a jar, I don't care. As long as it comes out of the jar, I don't care. A lot of people will say that if you're doing meats, Wide mouth jars are easier to clean because they don't have the, you know, the neck. They don't have the neck. I have a bottle brush. I know how to clean. So it's really just a preference on your part, whether it's wide mouth, whether it's regular mouth, whether it's quarts, pints, or jelly jars, half pints, 4-ounce jars, you know, that kind of fun stuff. There's a plethora of jars out there. Be very careful about the jars that you buy. If you go to something like Hobby Lobby or, you know, Michael's, those are not canning jars. Those are not jars for food preservation. They are jars that look like canning jars, but they're for decoration. If you go to Meijer, if you go to Walmart, if you go to, you know, any number of places, then you can find Ball canning jars. Walmart now has, or apparently has had, Mainstay canning jars. Golden Harvest, which are normally found at Dollar General, but that might be changing. I'm trying to remember all the different kinds of jars that are available today because, like I said, most of the ones that I use are used. And so I've got some serious vintage jars sitting there, and I love them. And if you treat them right and keep them out of your oven, then they will last you a long, long time. It's an investment to begin, but you earn that money back as you go along. You really do. So, lids and jars. If you're going to get into jelly making or straining or anything like that, this, I apologize for the look of this because it's been beat up by me, but it's the Norpro Jelly Strainer Set, okay? And so it has the stand, it has the jelly bag, and you put the fruit and the mash and everything in there over a bowl, and it drains out. There are a number of recipes where that's handy. Is this a must-have? Not by any stretch of the imagination. I do believe that you should have cheesecloth in your preps, though, because this comes in handy for a bunch of different stuff. I go for the, this is bleached, which is why it's still sitting in my pantry. I typically try to go with the unbleached. And the easiest place for me to find that is typically my hardware store, believe it or not. But this is very handy to have when it comes to straining stocks or jellies or juices, you know. These are nice to have. Do you have to have them? No. You're going to want a timer, whether that is on your phone, on your stove, or this cute little bugger right here, right? 4 jars. You're going to need a timer because you have to keep track of the time that you are processing things. This is great for jams and jellies and things under, you know, 60 minutes or under. If it is meat at 90 minutes, you're going to need to reset it 2/3 of the way through. Still, it's great. I love this little thing. It's so cute. So a timer is actually necessary wherever it's from, whether it's the really cute 4 jars timer or whether it is on your phone, or if you still have a stove that has a timer on it, you need a timer that works. So there's the must-haves and there's the, ooh, that's kind of cool. There is a Ball electric jam maker. It's kind of cool. It's kind of pricey, okay? You can use a pot. It works. And Ball also has an electric, I think Ball also has an electric water bath canner, I think it is, that has a spigot on it. It holds a whole bunch of water. Again, it's pricey, and some people use it for making their stock, you know, their bone broth and stuff. I use my roasters or my crock pot, so I don't need a whole extra piece of equipment that just says Ball on it. I don't think it's worth it. Again, that's a personal preference, so it's totally up to you on those 2 pieces of equipment. There are so many things out there that are going to go, ooh, look at shiny new toy, right? But basically, you need something to process correctly in. No, you cannot use your pressure canner as a steam canner. I don't care what anybody says. You need a way to keep the jars off the bottom of whatever pot it is. You need a way to separate the jars if you're doing 2 layers. You need a way to lift the jars out. You need lids and you need jars. And if the jars are used, you probably need rings. Everything else is just sparkly glitter, okay? And I love me some sparkly glitter when it has to do with canning. But the basics are what you need to get started if you're brand new into the process. I hope that this answers your question. Take a look at the links down below. I've dug them all out for you, and some links to some videos that will explain the steam canner and the regulators and all of that fun stuff. If you want to take a look at the Presto kind of all the way through what it does, check out this video right here. It's an oldie but a goodie, and it'll show you the ins and outs of a Presto. Until next time, everybody, be safe.